Like alcohols, amines have a simple nomenclature system that is applicable to amines that have alkyl groups that aren't highly branched or don't contain other functional groups. And then for amines that are more complicated, we'll learn the actual IUPAC system. So we'll first tackle simple amines. We're going to name them as alkyl amines. So all you have to do is count up the number of carbons in a particular chain. So looking at that one, we have 1, 2, 4 carbons. So it's based on a butyl group, and we'll call this butylamine. And it's all one word. The butyl and the amine run together. This next one, it's a sec-butyl group. So this is sec-butylamine. And then, let's do the benzene name down there. This compound has as its parent aniline, and so we will start with that. Our numbering should go clockwise from the aniline, the NH2 attachment, because that gives us a substituent at number 2, versus if we went counterclockwise, the nitro would show up at number 3. So this will be 2-methyl, and then the nitro, if that's 2, 3, 4, the nitro's at 5. So 2-methyl, 5-nitro aniline. So that's it for simple amines. Obviously, if you get more complicated, you're going to have to do something a little more sophisticated than this, and that would be IUPAC nomenclature. So for the IUPAC nomenclature, we're going to treat it very similarly to how we did alcohols, in that we will find the longest chain with the nitrogen group on it. Then we're going to have to indicate where that NH2 is with a number. We want to give it the smallest number possible. And then we're going to list substituents alphabetically, give them a number. And to actually name the parent, which is an amine, we're going to do the alkane name. We're going to drop the E and add the word amine. So it's going to be an alkanamine. So let's go ahead and do a fairly simple one. This was the previous sec-butylamine. I could also name it IUPAC-wise. There are 4 carbons. I'm going to number the chain so that the amine gets the smallest number, so it's at number 2. It's a butane, and so I can say 2-butanamine. Or, if I wanted to get a little kind of newer, I could go butan 2-amine. Just as if this were an alcohol, we could say it's 2-butanol or butan 2-ol. Either one of those would work, so butan 2-amine. It's very similar to an alcohol. Going ahead and taking a look at this next one, the chain that contains the NH2 will be the one I just outlined there. We're going to number it so that the amine gets the smallest number, so it is actually at number 1. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a bromo at number 3, so we'll start with that since it comes first alphabetically. We have 3-bromo, 2-methyl, and it's butan again. Butan. Now I do have to put 1 amine because that NH2 could be anywhere on that chain. So I do need to indicate that it is at number 1. So 3-bromo, 2-methyl, butan 1-amine. Okay, so for this next one, let's go ahead and we will find the longest chain with the amine attached to it. This time we're going to be including that double bond in there as part of that parent chain. So there it's outlined in green. There's our longest chain. The amine has priority over the double bond, so I'm going to number it such that the amine has the smallest number. So I'll be headed in from the right, which will give it number 3. The other way would have given it a 4. So it's going to be based on hexane loosely. There is a methyl at number 5, so let's put that out. It's our only substituent, so we'll put that out front. 5-methyl. Now it's hexane, but there is an alkene, so we're going to go hexene, and so we'll say hex. Now we have to specify where the double bond is. It's at number 4, so hex 4-ene. I'm not going to put that E after the ene, so the E-N-E, I'm not going to put that last E, because what's going to follow is the word amine, which starts with a vowel, and it's at number 3, so 3-amine. So because I have a vowel, I ended up dropping the E right there after the EN. Now with secondary and tertiary amines, we are going to name them as substituted primary amines. So, in other words, for the cyclohexane compound down here that I am going to find a chain, typically the longest chain or more complicated chain of carbon atoms, including the amine, that will be the parent. So for this guy right here, I'm going to include the cyclohexane and the nitrogen. That is going to be my parent. And I'll name it as a primary amine with an ethyl substituent on the compound. The substituent happens to be on the nitrogen. So what I'm going to do, if a substituent is on the nitrogen, you're going to designate it with an N. So instead of like 3-ethyl or 6-ethyl, it's going to be N-ethyl. It'll still be alphabetized under E for ethyl, but instead of a number, it will get an N in front of it. So, if we're going to do this guy, as a parent, it is a cyclohexanamine with an ethyl on the N. So we'll say N-ethyl, cyclohexan. I'll drop the E of hexane, so hexanamine. N-ethyl cyclohexanamine. I don't need to put a 1 before amine. In other words, right there, I do not need to have that 1 because it is understood that the nitrogen is actually going to be at number 1 by default. So we'll just erase that. It's redundant to put that there. You don't need it. Okay, looking at the next compound, we have to choose a parent. It's a tertiary amine. We have to choose a parent. So let's go ahead and make it the more complicated chain that includes the nitrogen, and that's going to be this thing I'm outlining right here in green. So that's my parent, and we're going to name that as a primary amine. It will have an ethyl substituent on the nitrogen and a methyl substituent on the nitrogen. In addition, if you look at my chain, I also have a methyl substituent on the chain. So I'm going to be having, in effect, a dimethyl substituent. One of the things will be a number, and one will be an N, telling you where the methyls are. So let's go ahead and see if we can't get this thing named. The substituents are methyls, ethyl, and methoxy. So ethyl is going to come first. So I'm going to say N-ethyl. It's an ethyl substituent on the nitrogen, so N-ethyl. Now the methoxy, I guess we better number our parent here. We're going to give the nitrogen the smallest number on the chain, so here's 1, 2, 3. It's a pretty short little chain. It's a propane chain. The methoxy is at number 1, as is the nitrogen. So we'll have N-ethyl, and methoxy comes before methyl, so it will be 1-methoxy. Then we have to deal with these methyls. There are 2 of them, so it's a dimethyl. As far as where they are, 1 is on the N. We go N, comma, and 1 is at number 2, so it's N, comma, 2, dimethyl. You could go 2 comma N too, it doesn't really matter. N comma 2, 2 comma N. Dimethyl, then it's a propane, so we're going to go propan, drop that E, and it's 1-amine. So having a substituted amine is not a big deal. You just figure out which one's the best primary amine. Anything else off of that is considered to be a substituent labeled with N. As our final case, let's consider where the amine now is lower priority than something else. So in that case, it's relegated to a substituent itself. So here we have a ketone. Ketones are higher than amines. So what is actually going to drive the name of this, the parent, is the ketone part. So our parent is the ketone. And the carbonyl carbon gets number 1. Now we have to number around the ring. No matter which way I go, my numbers will be the same. And so I'll have either 3-amino or 3-isopropyl. So what will next decide how I'm going to number would be alphabetizing. Amino comes before isopropyl. So we will be headed down towards the amine. And so it's going to be 3-amino, 5-isopropyl, cyclohexanone. And again, I don't need to put cyclohexan 1-one because it is understood on the ring that it is where I'm starting, so it is number 1.